I'm Rachel Dickinson, and I have the pleasure of being here at Continuum Estate at Sage Mountain Vineyard with Carissa Mondavi. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Oh, thank you for coming. Thank you for wanting to learn about what we're doing here. I appreciate it.
Yes, and I'm curious to know, how did Continuum come about?
So Continuum speaks to the fact that as a family, we haven't missed a harvest since 1919.
Wow.
So my great-grandparents immigrated here to America and to work in the mines in Minnesota, and they were Italian, and Prohibition came along, and necessity is the mother of invention, they say, and for us it was the origin story to how we got into the wine. So my great-grandparents moved from Minnesota to Lodi and got into grape shipping.
Oh, wow.
And my grandfather, Robert, was born in Minnesota, but he was about 8 or 9 when they moved to Lodi. He would help build the boxes, the grapes would get shipped in, and my great-grandfather established a network throughout the Midwest and the East Coast to ship grapes because it was legal to make home wine during Prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, they were exploring the breadth and width of California and seeing what California did best. So with repeal 14 years later in 1933, my great-grandfather came to believe that the best quality was coming from here in Napa Valley, where there was a higher level of character and more beautiful acidity. So he had the vision to get a minority interest in bulk winemaking here.
Wow.
And encouraged my grandfather after college in 1936 to come here and oversee the bulk winemaking. My grandfather, Robert, was able to then encourage his dad to buy Charles Krug Winery, and in 1943. And then in 1965, when my great-grandfather passed, there were diverging views about how to carry forward, and so my grandfather broke away and began Robert Mondavi Winery in 1966 when he was 53 years old.
Wow.
And my dad, Tim Mondavi, was in high school when Robert Mondavi Winery began, so worked all the first harvests, was first Warren Winiarski, then Mike Gergich, then Zelma Long. He went to UC Davis, got his degree in viticulture and enology, and when he graduated, my grandfather made him responsible for the wines in 1974.
Wow.
And so he oversaw all that we were doing in the vineyards and in the cellar, tons of experimentation, traveling extensively throughout the world to see what makes great wine, and bringing it back and experimenting and just doing everything we could to elevate wines from the area. And so my grandfather had like a multifaceted vision. He was very much about elevating American wine to the world stage, but he was also sort of this driving force, this ambassador for the culture of wine and putting it squarely on the American table. And so for him, it wasn't just wine, it was wine and food and art and all these things that enhance how we live. And so, whereas my dad, he's been focused on wine on an artistic level. And so Robert Mondavi Company went public in 93, and when that company, when we went public, everything went public. The vineyards, the wineries, the brands, everything. And so in 2004, it was a perfect storm in the industry, if you will, and so my family unfortunately sold Robert Mondavi Company, but the funny thing is my dad was the same exact age my grandfather had been. He was 53, had 3 decades of experience in this valley, and he set his sights to this eastern ridge for us to be able to carry on our family legacy on a very small scale at the very, very highest level. So what we're building here is a continuation, if you will, of our family's journey in wine, but it's I think our highest aspiration in terms of great wine. So yeah, what we're doing here now is a single wine from a single estate, a terroir-driven, estate-based wine, and so that's what Continuum is.
Oh.
It's a long story, but there's a lot behind the name. So
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I love learning about, of course, the story behind the bottle, and having deep roots in the Napa Valley. I'm curious, what's one of your earliest memories of wine?
Oh gosh, well, My dad, well, many memories. I think I have memories of my dad coming home during harvest, and he would sing me to sleep, and his face, his mouth would be stained purple, his teeth, and I distinctly remember, the smell of his breath after tasting young Cabernet all day long, during fermentation and all, and I remember that vividly. But my first experience that I remember with wine is just my parents having it on the table, and if we asked about it, they let us taste it. And my dad always would encourage us. He would say, "Well, what are you tasting?" And we're like, "Oh, it's very harsh. I don't like it," or whatever the words we used at the time. And he was like, "I could see why you see that. I could see why you would taste that. Yeah, this is," he would sort of encourage our young palate. So I think they always let us taste what they had, and then when we were at special occasions, we'd have our own little glasses, and it was just something we grew up with on the table and sort of slowly acclimated to understanding how it's a part of the meal and how it's something you can appreciate, and then hopefully for the enhancement of the table and time together.
Yes. Yeah. Well, speaking of bottles of wine, can you tell us a bit more about this wine here that we're...
Absolutely. This is our 2021 Continuum. And so what we have here is, this is a reflection of what the estate is planted to. And so everything we're doing here is for the focus of this wine. So this vintage is 45% Cabernet Sauvignon, 35% Cabernet Franc, 11% Petit Verdot, 11% Merlot, and 9% Petit Verdot. And that's basically a reflection of what we have the estate planted to. So it's a higher percentage of Cabernet Franc, but we think Cabernet Franc does exquisitely up here. And I just think this wine I think a hallmark of my dad's winemaking is that they're very texturally driven, very silky, supple, and yet lots of layers, lots of depth. And this site gives us this beautiful ferrous minerality that is really special, and this savoriness that comes from the native brush that surrounds. And volcanic soils also give this beautiful, more high-tone vibrancy to the wine, in addition to the generosity and the power that mountain fruit can give you. So it's a really special site, and that's why we're here, and that's why I think the site allows us to take our legacy in wine to the next level.
It's beautiful. It's almost the garnet color. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So because of our elevation, we get these beautiful, cool morning lights, and there's just these thicker skins you get from being on this more lean soil where the vines naturally struggle. You're getting smaller berries and thicker skins, and so tons of color.
Yeah.
It's a really special element, but that also, there's so much ageability in this wine. This wine is already beautiful. It's a baby. This is our current release. And yet it has all the components that will allow it to just get better and better and better with time. And that's I think a mark of a great wine is that it should be approachable at every stage of its life.
Yeah.
And yet have all the components that can go the distance and continue to unfold and reveal more and more layers.
I also love the label on the bottle. It's very artistic. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, thanks for asking. My sister is the artist who did the artwork that's on our label. She majored in fine art in college, and it's the original piece is 12 feet wide, 6 feet tall. She built this canvas, brought it into the vineyards, and propped it up behind the vine and literally captured it when the sun was at the right angle in the sky, so that the vine is dancing on the canvas and she's sort of capturing it as she interprets it. And so it's a 25-year-old Cabernet Franc vine that our dad had planted. And hence our love of Cabernet Franc, which shows such a beautiful pure expression of sight, beautiful floral notes, and has all these components that allow it to have great ageability. I think the fact that we have this gorgeous reflection of the gold flecking, I think it really speaks to the magic of light into wine, and something that Galileo said, which is wine is sunlight held together by water. I think it really captures the spirit of that. So it's the vine interacting with the sun that sort of ultimately expressing the time and place that you have whenever you're enjoying the wine. So
wow, beautiful.
Yeah, this wine gives us like these gorgeous dark fruit aromas. Like you get, I think, a lot of black fruit, boysenberry, but also like some more high tone, like hint of like raspberry that I think really is specific to like this area and these volcanic soils. In addition to those savouriness and the ferrous minerality that we get, there's just a ton of complexity that keeps unfolding. So
yeah.
Like that hibiscus that is unusual, you don't think of with like mountain Cabernet, but like these volcanic soils give this beautiful brightness that's just really special. And in addition to like some more like brown spices like sandalwood and yeah.
I love how it just lingers on the palate, and then you just keep on wanting more and more.
Yes.
It's very
mouth-watering.
Oh,
exactly.
yes.
That's that vibrancy that my grandfather used to. So if you, also as it's touching your palate, it's very silky, supple. So there's a lot of power and substance to this wine, but there's nothing that's out of place or harsh. It's all very harmoniously integrated, and so it rolls seamlessly over your palate, really revealing more and more layers. And my grandfather always used to say that a great wine should be friendly on your palate, approachable, and yet just like linger ever on and continue just to show more. So that's the beauty of enjoying it with food and being able to have it enhance a meal, elevate the spirits, all the beautiful things that wine brings to our lives. Yeah.
What's one of your most memorable meals that you've had a bottle of Continuum pair with it?
Oh my goodness. I don't, my most memorable meals with Continuum. I think it would probably have to be Thanksgiving, because my family gets together and just a whole bunch of us and family and friends, and so we always love to be able to see different vintages, and I don't know, I think that's to me when wine is in its highest expression, when it's in a convivial atmosphere. And so Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, and I think it's the embodiment of all the things that we're doing, you know, food and coming together and great wine and just being able to take your time enjoying the preparing and sharing the meal. So I don't have the specific Thanksgiving in mind, but just those moments of being able to be with my family, and like for us to be able to really be able to see it in its element and reflect on, you know, with pride on what we're doing and how well the wine is continuing to evolve.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what's a Mondavi Thanksgiving like? There's a lot of you.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's my dad has had to reorganize his whole house so that all of us can be in there, and I have a brother who collects all the branches from around and, you know, builds these vases that with the branches just hanging over us like trees, and with candlelight. And so it's a lot of mayhem, but then ultimately everybody comes together for the meal. So it's and to the backdrop of the most beautiful time of year, which is just in the aftermath of harvest, and the vines are senescing, so it's a beautiful golden cast over the whole valley, and there's also a peace over the valley, because all the hard work that everybody has put into the entire year is finally, you know, everyone can rest, everyone can pause, and everyone can sort of catch their breaths a bit. And it's a really beautiful time of year to be here in the valley, and to also enjoy the fruits of our labor. So
yeah. And what has been one of your favorite wine experiences that you've ever had?
I think probably it was this, you know, in 2002, my grandfather brought us through Europe, and it was this rapid succession of like, I mean, sort of like a death march. You know, the inspiration behind this trip was for us to follow in the footsteps of what had been his inspiration for what a great wine should be. So we went to the great houses in Burgundy, the first gross of Bordeaux, the great friends we have in Italy who making great wine, and I think it was just the rapid succession of all these amazing stories that sort of unfolded with each of these places, and to see the rapport that my grandfather had with all these amazing wine producers who there was such a mutual affection there, and be able to see that. So it was like all of that condensed, all of it together was collectively my, the big, very big wine moments. And I wouldn't single one out because I think they were all just so magical. But I also think that sort of the spirit of wine is like, there's so many beautiful moments you can have with it.
Yeah.
Which is, I hope that for everyone anyways. I feel that.
Yeah. One of the things I love about wine travel is learning about all these different grape varieties that you never even knew about.
Yeah.
And it just opens your mind up. I mean, it's such a large world.
Yes.
And so many different wines.
Yeah.
And I think once you get a taste of just exploring the different wine regions and connecting with the people and all of the experiences that are part of that, it's so addicting.
Yeah.
And just amazing.
Absolutely. And there are so many people in the world doing amazing things, and all of it is such a gorgeous, very different expressions throughout, that it's just a fun adventure. And that to me is the spirit of wine, this beautiful exploration of this expression of God's green earth, as my dad likes to say. I think it's this vast, limitless exploration. And even if you think you know it all, which absolutely nobody does, the most brilliant studied wine people know that they don't know everything, but there's always another vintage and another vintage repeated throughout all the regions every year. So it's limitless, which is the fun of it. So just to enjoy exploring, and I love that you have caught the wine bug.
I definitely have.
Yeah. And even if you go to the place and you don't remember all the details of it, you have an essence of what the place is about and what the kind of wines that they have from that area, and that's so powerful.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting things about wine is, there's just so much. It has been in the world for such a long time.
Yeah.
And you think you may know, a good amount, and then you realize oh wow, there's so much I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of makes people get the wine bug. It's you just want to know more and more. And it attracts very inquisitive people.
Yes. Yeah. And I think invariably people who love wine love travel, they love food, they love sharing things, so there's a lot that, if you love wine, it sort of connects all these things, and the exploration of different cultures, and that those are all beautiful things to celebrate in life. Yeah.
One of the things I love about your grandfather is that he had appreciation for food and wine, and brought that culture to Napa Valley. Yeah. Now there's a lot of food and wine pairings and things like that. So I'm just curious to, being his granddaughter, your thoughts about food and wine in general.
In pairing? Well, I think, in Italian culture, wine was just essential to the meal. And when we our beginnings were very humble. The wine wasn't it wasn't this elevated thing on the table. It was essential to the meal. And I think that has been a through line for us. And I love the art of pairing, and I love going to great restaurants and seeing how sommeliers are pairing the food of the chefs. That is an artistic expression that I really enjoy. But I think in terms of pairings, there's no rules. There's no rules you have to adhere to truly honor a wine, provided the food is balanced and you have vibrancy in the food, and meaning umami is a great is a great flavor profile in food, but if it has too much umami, too much deliciousness, and not enough vibrancy, it can bring out more harsh characters in the wine. So you need acidity, you need like the savory elements so that the wine can shine. So if the food is imbalanced, the wine is imbalanced, you can have something really great. So there are no rules. You can have vegetarian meals with Cabernet from Napa Valley, provided the wine is balanced, we used to have a program back in the day in our history that was called the Liberated Enjoyment in Wine of Wine and Food, and it was all about that. It was all about sort of, we have these emotional connections to different classic pairings, and that's all wonderful, and I think there's a reason for that, and that's something to be enjoyed. But I just think in terms of enjoying wine and food, like just whatever calls to you in the moment, I think is the most important rule in wine and food pairings.
So I'm curious, what does a day in the life of Carissa Mondavi look like?
Oh gosh, there's no 2 days that are alike.
Yes.
I mean, and that's the fun of it. That's what I love, because I get to travel throughout the U.S. and throughout the world to present our wines. And when I'm here, there's always something different happening, whether they're blending sessions that I am involved in, or whether we're discussing things in the vineyards, or just working on the communications, things we're wanting to pull together. Like right now, the 2023 vintage is my dad's 50th harvest as a winemaker. Wow. And so we are preparing to do some very special things when we release that vintage in 2026. And we're also remodeling our hospitality space, so that will be ready in time for that. So there's a lot happening around that. And I'm also involved in all the communication that we have, all the copy that we're doing. And so there are days when I'm working from home because it's the best place for me to just be able to focus. So every day is different, and that's what I love about it. I mean, we're so small that we're all involved in every little aspect of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is such a beautiful and unique property. Thank you so much for taking us on a tour.
Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you for coming. I'm so delighted you were willing to brave the cold.
Oh yeah.
It's a little chilly out there, but yeah, it's worth it if you can handle it. So, yeah.
It's amazing that you can see the San Francisco Bay from the vantage point at the top. It's just, I've never seen a view like that in the valley. It was just a very special experience.
Yeah, well, when you come back in our new hospitality space, I look forward to being able to host you up there with the view to Mount St. Helena in the north, and into the valley, and the full 180-degree view of the valley is pretty powerful. So we're very honored to be looking after this land and expressing it in this wine, and that's the entire spirit of our focus, is to honor this exquisite site and our legacy in wine. So
yeah. And earlier you mentioned there are 2 different types of soil here at Continuum Estate. So for those that don't know, maybe you could just tell us a bit.
Yeah, we have Hambrite is the dominant soil type we have here, which is this very rocky volcanic soil. There's very little clay, and then Sobrante has a higher clay content. So basically this whole area where we are, this Pritchard Hill area, there's a lot of andesite boulders, and the top 2 to 5 feet where our vines dig down have been exposed to the elements over the millennia, slowly broken down from the oxygen in the air and in the water, and so you have this gorgeous iron oxide in this volcanic soil that really well drained, so the vines naturally struggle, so we're naturally getting a very small crop. So but what we get is this beautiful pure expression of this site, and so that's why you have this gorgeous minerality that is right up there with the fruit expression that this site gives us as well, which is part of why this area is so renowned, because you have such a pure expression of this site from the naturally low yields.
And I love the sage And there was another plant you showed us.
And bay
Yes,
laurel.
bay.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are native versions of what are classic cooking ingredients, very potent cooking ingredients. And so you can you can smell it as you're driving through the vineyards in the heat of the growing season, and the vines smell it too. So those essences literally populate on the skins of the berries, so they imbue this gorgeous savory note into the wine. And so you can see this other level of complexity, or these dried wild herbs that are just it just adds to the depth of character and complexity and layers and nuance that we get.
Delicious. So, if you could share a bottle of wine with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. I think probably I would have to say actually my grandmother Rosa.
Oh.
Yeah, my great grandmother Rosa. My grandfather just absolutely raved about her food, and I think that's part of how he became such a strong, like a passionate seeker of great food, is that he was continually looking for something at the level of what his mom had done, and then he was really lit up with the incredible 3 Michelin star meals that you would see in France, and just all of that added to his sense of what a great wine should be. But he said that she would control the destiny of Charles Krug through her kitchen.
Oh.
So everything happened there in Rosa's kitchen, and I think she was quite a strong woman. She was an incredibly hard worker. She had, like, in the mining time of their life, she would clean, they took on boarders, and they would, there would be miners that she would clean all their clothes, she would cook for them, and they worked so hard, and she just, I understand, she just had this incredible love of life and great food, and she was always cooking. And so I think I would have loved to share a bottle of wine with her while cooking something that she was known for, that and to just smell all the smells of her kitchen, and just her spirit. I think that would be someone I would love to share a bottle with.
Yeah. Do you have any recipes of hers?
I don't, but my aunt does, and so I do not. But my dad talks about her food, so I feel like I know some of it. Yeah, and my grandfather, he was always looking, like, we would go places, and he would, like the gnocchi with the tomato sauce, he was always very critical. He could be a very severe judge on it, but if it was just right, then he would have the highest compliments to the chef, because it would remind him of his mother's food. So I saw that again and again. So
yeah, very cool. Yeah, my mom is a great chef.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so
maybe part of where you get your love for
I think
food
so,
and wine.
actually. Yeah. And it's fun because in my mom's kitchen, she always had cookbooks like Rombauer, The Joy of Cooking, and also Karen McNeil's books.
Oh, yes.
So
wonderful.
Yeah, it's always just amazing to see how so many iconic people in the Napa Valley have just made a mark on the society of food and wine.
Yes,
so
absolutely. I think it's there are so many very passionate, very dedicated, very hardworking people here in the Valley, and everybody is a part of elevating what we're doing and helping to continue to honor this place and make wines at the highest level. Yeah.
Well, Carissa, thank you so much for your time today. It's really a treat to be here, and cheers to you.
Well, cheers to you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your passion for exploring and for, like, helping to shine the light on what people are doing. I appreciate what you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you, Carissa.
Thank you for being here.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you.